you've got it set to do the cut back and forth with
Whiskey Room.
Yeah, I figured I'd hang out in the whiskey room for a change tonight. Change the scenery and all that good stuff.
Nice.
I like it.
Do you guys have tattoos? Yeah, you got tattoos. What is that one? Ooh, I like it. That's a sensitive area to get a tattoo, man.
I got
it is, but at the time it was the only place I could really get away with. Oh, that's awesome.
Nice. I have one company logo here, and then the other company logo here.
Oh, no way.
And then Harley Davidson. That's the Jerusalem Cross.
That's the Jerusalem Cross one, yeah.
And Shaka.
Nice. I'm getting I hit a milestone this year. My birthday this year, I hit a big old milestone. And a very good friend, Chris Bolton, who's was over at IBM, he's doing his own thing. For one of his big milestones, he got basically a whole sleeve. So he did the whole like underside here, but it was almost a cross between steampunk and networking. And it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was basically, it was like the skin got peeled away, kind of one of those. And it was, you could see like the networking cables going. There was like a reference to 303 in there, around 2600. And it was just beautifully done. And I'm like, I really wouldn't mind doing something, along those lines.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
I'll do that. Either that or actually with this dragon here, what I would love to do is get my daughters up on here as well and do like the fire sign for the rugrat and stuff like that. And just, it can be kind of cool.
It is cool. Very cool. So how was your day, man? You were in Oslo? I mean, virtually?
Yeah, pretty much. So I started out, I'm just going to move this closer. It's been 48 hours have been interesting. It's been like 5 or 6 hours of sleep over the last 48 hours just because of stuff. Mm-hmm. But started out this morning, did a presentation in Oslo for the Paranoia conference, which is actually fantastic. I was meant to be literally physically over there, but they've done the virtual one now, and then they're doing the live one possibly in October, and did a whole talk on healthcare and the future, the crystal ball, throw the crystal ball out, 5, 10, 15 years, and look at how far we've taken embedded technology, look at the issues and the challenges we see, look at the surveillance nation capabilities, all those good things.
It sounds cool, man.
That's a ton of fun.
It was actually a ton of fun. I've spent the last couple of months, I did a bunch of research a couple of years ago on biotech and nanotechnology, and then I squirreled, I just went off and charged off and I messed around with ships. But then I started coming back to it towards the end of last year because of the stuff I'm doing with the EEG sensors. And then the very first part of this year, I got a whole bunch of stuff shipped to me. I basically signed up for the pills. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. You can get the pills that actually have the cameras in them that obviously go through your entire system. They have ones that dissolve. MIT's got a whole bunch of interesting stuff. And there's a whole bunch of stuff which involves like surface patches, so that when you attach it or ingest it, it actually does the surface patch attack. And then from there, it floats out to like BLE or Zigbee or something like that. So I've literally spent evenings and nights and shit basically taking this stuff to pieces in the back of the lab, in the other space of the lab, just looking at all the challenges, shall we say, with it. Mm-hmm. And so the Paranoia one was just like the first, and here's some of the shit that we found.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah. I know what the hell I'm going to do with it, but it was fun doing it.
It just dawned on me, I think it was yesterday during our, we do a daily insanity check-in, right? It's just, we do it once a day and everybody's invited. People come, people go. We started it right after the COVID, right after people started shutting down their offices. We wanted to have just a virtual, water cooler, right? For anybody who needs to kind of keep their sanity. Oh, by the way,
mental health hackers,
right? Mental health hackers, brother.
Freaking awesome.
It's keep us sane, and we've been doing these things. But yesterday in the talk, I was like, why haven't I hacked my Harley yet?
You want to be able to ride it.
there's
Yeah,
that.
you know,
But I mean, like
it's
anything, you can replace parts, right? If I
True
totally
story.
F it up, I don't want
Yeah.
to, I don't want to F it up like, and then write it and then realize that I effed it up then, you know?
Yeah.
But
Do those things have, are they, I've not messed with the Harleys. Do they have the standard ODB2 socket so you can use the open ODB2 architecture to mess with them?
no, they got some kind of weird proprietary ECM jack behind the seat.
Yeah.
And then the other interface that I've found so far, I haven't even dug in yet. I just thought about it. Is a USB port up by the console, which, you know, has GPS and all that kind of stuff there.
Oh, that's interesting. See what you can pull out of that signals. The ECM stuff is amazing. There's some fantastic. I mean, there's actually some amazing people. Did some work with the National Guard a couple of years ago, like Cybershield and Cyber Yankee, and we brought in like a bunch of the folks from the car hacking village, and they gave an entire like day or two's worth of lecturing to the National Guard on all of the digital signatures that were in like all the Humvees and the Oshkoshes and just all of the stuff that was out there, just helping them understand some of the vulnerabilities. So, I mean, there's a huge, there's got to have been somebody that's basically taken the Harley to pieces in the digital sense out there.
Yeah. But, you know, part of me wants to just do it without doing any, you know, looking at anybody else's research just to kind of figure out how it all works.
You could probably get, I would imagine that ECM sensor's probably got a connection that you could probably connect into like a USB socket or something like that, because they're going to have to run diagnostics. So the easiest thing is probably to figure out, just, you know, start up, you know, the deal, start off Google the Harley diagnostics, figure out what the connections and the connectivity is, and start playing from there. Because the open ODP2 architecture is probably some of that stuff. So the PID IDs are probably running around that thing, you would assume.
Right. Yeah. And I know that the ACM is used for flashing, because every time you change something to the bike, like airflow, you have to reprogram the ECM. You know, if you're taking it on a dyno, you know, to tune it, you know, you'll flash the ECM for whatever parts you've got. So there's a lot of things we can do with that ECM. I know that sort of already just from stuff I've done before, but yeah, I'm just kind of interested to see.
The only thing to be careful on, because I've got one of the cars I have is a fairly new car, it's under warranty. Because a number of us have screwed with these things over the years, shall we say, they are keeping a log on some of them of what gets plugged into that port. So just be careful if there's a warranty on it. Go find the log, and if there is a log, either kill the log, edit, you know the deal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so what's our topic today, Ryan? This is your deal, man.
So, you know, given that last week we went pretty hard after a group, and you know, we're probably going after a lot of other groups. You know, that kind of got me thinking over the weekend, and one of the topics that I know we wanted to talk about was ego. And we've all got a slightly different view, I think, on what that is and what that means. And then obviously, if you saw the show notes, you see that, you know, there's a dictionary definition of it. So figured tonight we would just kind of talk about ego, talk about our egos as individuals, talk about the industry and our profession and the ego that has, talk about, you know, vendor egos, right? There's certain prestige that comes with working from certain companies that, you know, gets carried as kind of that ego. And I think for me, the greater conversation there is, I think some of that ego behavior that's negative leads to some of the things like gatekeeping and, you know, some of the negative behaviors that we have in our industry with the not helping out the new guy because he's new guy and he doesn't know anything, and, you know, just some of that stuff. So didn't put a whole lot of thought into it because, hey, it's a shit show after all. So, but I figured that's what we would go after. So I don't know, I'll throw it to you, Chris. What's your take?
So for everybody that's listening, we talked a little bit, like a small amount on this yesterday, and it was, I want to be careful when I say this, because I'll definitely, if I'm wrong, I'll own it. But from our standpoint, the three of us that are sitting here, for all of the craziness and the stupid shit that we've done and all that we've managed to accomplish and all that we've managed to screw up in our lives, I don't feel like we come armed with an ego to anything. So it's kind of really tough because there's a part of me that's like, hang on, I almost get partly defensive to begin with and go, I don't have an ego, but I'm like, well, I probably do. I know I do in certain things.
Yeah.
But I don't want to beat the crap out of certain people, because there's definitely people who go up on stage and the fanfare's there and the light show and that shit's there. And it's like, well, look at me. And there's enough of them out there. We all kind of know who they are. And as much as you want to call some of them out, I don't want to go that route.
Right.
But I love what you're saying, because as an industry, as an overall industry, we need to take a step back and go, we're not the special snowflakes. And I think we need to take that off of whatever mentality we have, which then makes us more approachable from the rest of the business. Because at the moment, you're right, a lot of the business says, good God, there's a bunch of fucking trumped up bunch of bloody, geeks and whatever. We just don't want to freaking deal with them, because they do approach like the special snowflakes sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, well, I mean, this goes back to the old, internet memes of, to try to get the IT guy to come to your desk, right? If you ever ask the average user about their experience with the IT guy, he comes to the desk, he goes, boom, 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 calls him an idiot and walks away, right? And so I think, there's part of that where the negative side of ego is, I have this superpower, I know how to do this thing you don't know how to do, right? And I think that's kind of the root of that.
What was that freaking? I'll remember in a minute. It was a story, and it just kept on going every week, and it was freaking. It was the IT guy from hell. What the hell was that one? Somebody I'll have to Google it. I can't Google it on this. I'll find it in a minute, because it's freaking. I love it, but it really is exactly what you just said. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I know I've done it. I've blamed my mother for the internet being wrong, my grandmother, for God bless her soul, and all that stuff. I've blamed everybody. And there's often times we haven't looked at ourselves and gone, you know what? Probably shouldn't have called them an idiot, because if I'd have gone and asked them an accounting question and hadn't understood it, they'd be fully justified in calling me an idiot, but they never would.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of times, some of the things that kind of break my heart, you see it happen. It's like social media. I think social media sometimes is kind of an evil place where, somebody will say something that, maybe I don't agree with. And rather than, entertain the perspective or entertain the thought or the idea, which might be valid in their mind, it is, right? I mean, perception is reality to people. You just get beat up sometimes, just with this closed-minded, I know more than you bullshit. And I think it turns people off, especially if you're new and you're easily intimidated. It's sad.
I got held to task in a very, very nice way by somebody on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. Gabrielle and I were doing a podcast with like Tony Cole, Gary, JJ Snow, and a bunch of others. And we were actually giving a conversation about, why would somebody come after my company? Why would a nation state hack my company? And we're talking about VPNs, we're talking about FTP, and we're talking about all these things. And she held my feet to the fire in a very nice way, but she's like, look, not everybody understands what the hell a VPN is. When you're talking, when you talk to your mother or your grandmother, do they understand what a VPN is? Do they understand what FTP is? And I'm like, oh, you're right, they don't. We all assume everybody's got a base level of understanding and knowledge. And it's just after that, it just, it depends on what the flavor that you've been chasing. But I think a lot of us, myself included, probably need to take a step back from that and go, okay, I need to understand, I need to explain it even better than we do, I think, a lot of times now.
Right. One of the things,
treat people like idiots when we do it.
Exactly. It's the way you communicate it, right? I mean, communicate it from a sense of, and it sounds corny, but from communicating it from love versus communicating it from my ego.
Yeah.
Right.
If I get a kick out of, if I put people down and that's how I make myself feel better, well, that's bullshit. And that's not the way the world works, right? That's not the way the world works, or it is the way the world works, sadly, but it's wrong, right? And it's wrong in our industry. Now, one of the things I really appreciate about working with Ryan is we have this relationship where Ryan calls my bullshit, and I call his bullshit. Mm-hmm. You got to have somebody who's accountable. Because I don't know how many times you've told me, Ryan, when we're talking to K, like K-12.
Yep.
You're saying something, I'm saying all the security stuff, thinking, well, yeah, everybody should know what the hell this means. And Ryan's like, yeah, they don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that the unfortunate side effect of that is nobody wants to feel dumb. So as soon as you start saying something I don't understand, not me personally, because I'm a very curious person, I'm like, no, I'm happy to be wrong and I want to learn. I'm excited to learn. But the average person, the minute you put them in a position where they feel dumb, they won't acknowledge feeling the dumbness. They'll get quiet and just kind of nod along. You run into this a lot of times too with learning a second language. So if you've ever tried to learn Spanish or anything, I mean, the way that you sound to a native speaker, right? You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't articulate what you're trying to say, you just keep, repeating el baño, el baño, el baño.
Right.
That means bathroom. Right? Did you say the bathroom, the bathroom, the bathroom?
I think I did, because if you're in Mexico, you got to say it 3 times fast so that they know you've drank the water.
Right.
It's
here's the interesting one on that one. I see a lot of that in audiences. If it's a predominantly, and actually it depends. So here's the caveat on that one. If it's a predominantly male audience, you'll get maybe 2 or 3 questions, maybe 4 questions. If it's a better mix of audience, I find you get more and more questions. One of the best times I had on stage just hanging out with people was it was actually down here, and I gave a lecture to one of the women's societies. And I mean, I was meant to go up on stage for like 45 minutes, an hour, and like 2 hours or so later, we're still just going at it. And it was just brilliant because there was no inhibitions to asking questions. And I think it was, it's that safe environment. There was the environment where, at least in that instance, it wasn't, because we have the same on male or female. It's like, okay, I don't necessarily want to put you down to build myself up, but I feel it's more prevalent from our side of the sex. Let's put it that way.
Well, we have much more fragile egos. Let's just be honest. Men have fragile egos, and that's just the truth and reality, and any real man will admit it. But I think part of the ego problem too with our industry as a whole is you have to work so hard to achieve some of these bars that when you get there, you're like, I did that, I put in the work. And when you see somebody that's maybe younger and less experienced trying to come up the ladder, but maybe doesn't have the same work ethic that the older generation has, or has a different work ethic, I think sometimes then you create another kind of communication misunderstanding because you're not seeing things from their position. Your ego is getting in the way. It's preventing you from seeing it from a different light. Evan kind of touched on that earlier with, what he had said about, now it just escaped my mind. Damn it, ADD.
It was so much wisdom, man. It's not coming back either.
Yeah, it's gone.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, we'll have to. Oh, yeah, it's recorded.
Yeah, I'll just go back and watch it.
Because we got the fucking live stream to work.
I was going to say, it feels like we're on a different platform. You know what I haven't seen, though? And I'm on the iPad for a change rather than on the laptop. I just grabbed the iPad. I don't have the chat window open because I can't see if anybody's. I kind of went up to it, but when I have to do it, I almost got to get like this on the stupid thing.
Well, it's funny. This is the least amount of live users we've ever had. The one time you actually get it right.
We don't have many live. Oh, damn it.
Well, there's a lot of other things going on right now live on.
Like what?
Stuff and things we'll get into offline. Just do a search for the most popular news topic right now, and I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Where's the biggest bonfire in the United States right now?
Yeah, about 30 miles from here.
Jeez. Yeah. Stay safe, guys. That's all I'll say. Actually, I was, again, not getting onto that too much, but watching the Twitter feeds for our family tribe who are up in that neck of the woods is like, do me a favor, freaking stay safe, keep your head down. I'll ship Kevlar if I have to.
Seriously. One of the things that Evan brought up when we were talking ego, and I want to make sure we get this in tonight because it's so important, is too much of anything is bad, right? You can't, if you've got too little or too much, you're out of balance. So too much of an ego, we've talked about that. That's that asshole syndrome. That's, being an egotistical prick, right? But then you've got the opposite side of the spectrum, which is not enough ego, which a lot of times manifests itself as lack of confidence, sheepishness, other very hesitant type of, situation. I think a lot of imposter syndrome is rooted on that side of the ego spectrum.
Hello. Yeah, I think a lot of us have got that one, definitely.
And I, the ideal spot obviously is that humble middle where you're
Right.
confident in what you do, and but I think I don't think you're stagnant in that either. I think you can move throughout that spectrum. Think of it as your good days and your bad days, right? You kind of move through, some days I'm definitely confident about the thing, the activity, the day, the plan, whatever it is. And other days, maybe that's more of a stretch day for me. Maybe that's more of a growth day for me.
And it can even shift in a day, right? I was talking to you earlier about, my day yesterday. The beginning of the day was awesome, man. I had a great meeting with the state of Minnesota with their CISO and their, deputy CISO about, third-party information security risk management. We're going to do a POC, killed it, right?
Nice.
Then the rest of the day was shit. I mean, it was like, what the hell happened? Nothing went right. Not even like stuff like, doing work around the house for my wife. I was like, what the fuck? I mean, I should have just closed shop after that meeting with the state of Minnesota and called it a day. But, you have the good days, you have the bad days. And I think the people that aren't transparent, that don't share that, look, man, we've got so much experience here on this show right now. Speaking for myself, almost 30 years of information security experience, and I still feel inadequate from time to time. I still have, I still have tech issues, and I still wonder, like, am I really, people pay me for this shit?
Yep.
It's 100% true, right? And it's always funny when the tech guy has the tech issue, right? I mean, but it's inherent in the complexity of the tech. And that's something we talked about last week. You can't be perfect at this. There's no way. There's too much nuance. There's too many different flavors of this, that, and the next thing to keep up. But I think, where the ego gets poisonous, if you will, is when that moment turns into a day, turns into a week, turns into a month.
Yeah.
Right. I think, and same thing when you're riding high on the horse, when you've had that good day, when you're really feeling, big in your shoes, like, yeah, man, this is great. I love this. This is, this is the day, right? That knowing that the absence of that high doesn't necessarily equal a low.
Yeah.
Right. So I think
it's the self-aware. A lot of it comes down to the self-aware, definitely. And it's when you said, you guys have a check balance between each other on that one, it got me thinking, and I think mine is probably Jesse. In honesty, like Jesse, Sweet, and Brett, I look at what Brett's achieved in his life. Former 82nd Airborne, amazing guy, boxed for the Army, all those kind of things. And yet the humblest guy that I possibly know. And Jesse is like our equivalent, but on the mechanical and electrical engineer. The guy collects hit and miss engines and freaking John Deere tractors and all sorts of other shit. He and I together are the ones that, hack the aviation systems, trains, and everything else just because of how his brain works. And I have a conversation with those guys, and Jesse's already told me, he's like, yeah, too big for you, but I'll wax load you. He's like, it's as simple as that. I'm like, okay, I'll bear that one in mind. But it's also that checks and bumps to go, look, that's the mirror. That's who I need to basically balance against.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, so one of the things that kind of popped into my head is, and you said it, Chris. I mean, I don't think the three of us are egotists. I think we're pretty well balanced in a lot of ways. I mean, we've got our issues. I mean, certainly.
I got a list of them.
Right.
There's a few.
Yeah,
but,
one or two.
But, the people, like one of the things I was just thinking of was, can you recall a time when you were on the shitty end of somebody's ego? Like somebody made you feel like shit. Somebody talked down to you. Let's share something like that. What do you got?
Early days, DEF CON 10. One of my first DEF CONs was like 8 or 9. But DEF CON 10, I remember going to 10, and I'd been at a couple. I'd actually given talks and things at like Black Hat and stuff like that at the early days, and just I'd been in the industry a long time, but I'd been behind the scenes deliberately for a whole bunch of reasons. I remember going to 10 and waiting in line, and I remember talking to somebody, and I remember just getting yelled at a couple of times for just stuff, and I'm like, this sucks. This really sucks. And so, fast forward several years later, and I'm doing the gooning and everything else, and you're sitting there, and you have to remember those stories and those times so that you don't do the same to other people. And as a kid, I look at how my father was. I have learned so much about how not to parent from my father.
Yeah.
And I think that probably above all has served me well. I mean, God, I remember getting fucking yelled at for shit that I just didn't know any better. One of the first ones, Lego. I remember, and I will never forget this. We would occasionally try to do the father something and build shit. I remember getting absolutely balled out, and I got the slipper in the end. He gave me the slipper in the end because I couldn't work out what a 2x4 Lego brick was. I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I couldn't figure out what a 2x4 brick was. And it, it's the normal square. It's the four. It's a normal fucking brick, and I couldn't figure it out. But because of what it was said or what it was, I kept bringing back the wrong piece. And I mean, he just went off the deep end, like absolutely went off the deep end. And those kinds of things, it's like, okay, that sticks with you, and you're like, I never want to be that way. What can I do differently?
Yeah.
For me, it's been a series of experiences where those that were supposed to support me or promote me, or, whether it's family, whether it's work, right? Kind of a lot of times where those that were supposed to be in those roles didn't really follow through, didn't fulfill kind of the minimum standards of, in the workplace, it was, having things, ideas snatched away and credit claimed. Like that's a common experience. Lots of people have that one, right? But it was also kind of put the potential in the corner, because if the potential is allowed to be unleashed, it might succeed and supersede. And so one thing that I'm very mindful of as I, have had responsibility for people over the years is to never stifle them being better or greater, because that's their path. Right? Yeah. It's not a competition. That's their path. If they're supposed to do that, then that's what that should happen. And that's not my role to stifle that. It's my role to support it up to the point that I can't, and then, move on to the next thing, I guess. So it's just, I don't know. I really take to heart what you said about kind of the family stuff, but really the core message there for me is, use the bad examples that you've seen. Use the crap that's been done wrong to you as a guidepost for how to be better to others. Because and we've all got those stories, right? I think the three of us got plenty of battle scars. Use that for good, and support people if you see that their ego, occasionally it needs a little stroking. And any one of us that's had a spouse in our life, or have dated or whatever, there's a lot of ego stroking goes on in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There just is.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's another episode right there.
But it's what we do for our friends. It's what we do for our friends. We all have friends that are into something that we're just not as enthusiastic about as they are. Mm-hmm. But if we want to be good friends in that moment, when they come and they're like, look at the thing, you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Right?
Right.
In reality, you might be like, it's a thing. So I think if we could bring some of that into our colleagues, into our mentees, those below us that we're trying to grow, if we can, bring those behaviors, I think that's where our industry can start to do a better job. And believe it or not, that care and that kindness is the foundation block for better relationships with the business, which means less security issues because of more want to care to change behavior, more want to care to support budget and technology change and process change. right?
Yeah.
Because now there's meaning in the relationship, and whether you like them or hate them, everybody has relationships with your coworkers. It's all about how you manage them, how you nurture them. You know, how's your ego show up, and how's their ego show up?
Right. Yeah. Well, and Jason just brought up in the chat too, in the military, and you brought up, Chris, your father.
Yeah.
I grew up an only child of a 20-year Marine, and my mother
Yep.
was a 6-year Marine.
Oof.
Yeah. So that they were both Marines. And the sad thing about that was there was never anybody else to blame shit on.
Yep.
If
Same thing.
if you broke something, it's like, fuck, I'm screwed.
Yep. Yeah.
And if Marines, I mean, and it's part of their thing, right? Pride,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pride. And, getting beat up enough times, I think, not beat up physically, well, occasionally, but, getting beat up mentally, being on the other side of an ego, and I appreciate it, because what it did is it actually prepared me, I think, a lot for this industry and a lot for the world. Right. I'm thankful for my upbringing. I'm not, resentful about that. But I think that's where I got most of my shit from ego. By the time I got into this industry, I was already, I think, pretty well prepared to be almost ego proof in a way. Like, I just don't give a shit what people think. Certain people, if what they think is, destructive, right? I always want to be open-minded and hear what people have to say, because I know I don't have all the answers. Fuck, I don't have half the answer. I don't have 10%.
Right.
So when you get those perspectives from other people, they're so valuable. So keeping an open mind, but then being able to identify the asshole in the bunch and be like, I don't give a fuck what you say. You're a dick. We have a thing, at our company, right? And I've gotten up and said it multiple times in front of the whole company. We have no dickheads here. If we find a dickhead, we get them out.
Yeah.
It's not helpful. So, yeah. And the big thing for me, though, is I've seen people get their asses kicked because of ego. So I feel like I can do more to maybe help defend against that. Yeah. You were going to say something, Chris. What were you thinking?
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, the dickhead stuff is just, it's not helpful. It doesn't work. And I mean, you've done the same thing. You've run companies as well. I mean, Ryan, all three of us have been in those positions, whereas like, I looked at it. I mean, when I started Owl and a couple of other companies I've had as well, and you bring people in, you think they're good, and then X amount of time in, you're like, "Ooh, that was not the best of hires." No matter what I say, no matter how I do it, and
right,
you almost have to check yourself, and literally back to the check the ego. You're like, "Look, I made a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help you explore other opportunities."
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but I've seen, going back to, like social media on Twitter, I've seen people, I can't recall. Yeah, I did try to look it up, in preparation for the show. Just this one example that stuck out to me. It was somebody who was trying to get into this industry and, had been studying and doing kind of all the things that they thought that they should have done.
Yeah.
And I was, they should be excited, yet they had taken so much of a beating from our elite hackers, this closed group of, you did this really cool thing. Oh, well, whatever, man. Script kiddie. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
And
Back to your point, it's
they were
like
going to leave.
Celebrate even the small wins. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and they figured out how to get shell on a machine. I remember going into a pen test, and whenever we went into pen testing, it was always one senior and one junior, because that way you pair up, and it's kind of a cool way of doing it. I always remember hanging out with a good friend of mine who basically popped his first shell, and you should have seen the look. It was just like, yes, and I am the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I'm happy for them. I'm not sitting there going, I got fucking 10 running over here, for God's sakes. Right. I'm sitting there and I'm like, yes, because I know exactly what that felt like. And then that, yeah. And so it's that celebration, to your point, as opposed to going, well, okay, that sucks. There's 10 of them over here, or whatever it was. And right. And it's not easy. And I can probably have some of those things leveled against me in my past. I know I've said stuff I well and truly should never have said.
Right.
But I think it's, again, maybe it's the gray hair or whatever it is. It's really sitting back and look, there's a bunch of folks from like Secure Set, which is one of the training centers here in town. And a lot of it's like, okay, how the hell do I help you get into this industry more effectively? Because at some point in time, I do want to take a step back, probably before I'm kind of even more coddled and aged than I am now. And the only way that happens is if you do better than I do.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some efforts. I mean, there's some amazing people in our industry who go to just crazy lengths to help. I mean, let's face it, anybody who puts on a freaking B-sides or any kind of a conference, I mean, they need a freaking medal just for doing that themselves. The headache and the hassles and all the other stuff that goes with it. So I got a huge amount of love for anybody that does that, because that's such an amazing way of just giving back to the community and going, look, I know some of us are assholes and families a little dysfunctional, but get your asses in here and let's just share ideas.
Well, that was one of the things I wanted to do in this show too, is not call out the bad people, because that almost puts us on the same level. Right. But calling out the good people. So you mentioned, putting on a conference. I mean, Dave Kennedy, right? What an awesome dude.
Oh, and what a ton of shit he went through, whatever it was, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it was. I feel so freaking bad because, I mean, he, in his core, he just wanted to do the right thing.
Right.
I mean, he just wanted to do the right thing. And it's just, let's say Nick Bakokis, same kind of thing. I mean, we talked about like, not ego companies, but companies that you really want to work for. I remember back in the day, like Spider Labs. I mean, you want to talk about an amazing organization that had certain, we're going back 10, 15 years or so now.
Right.
But I mean, that was one of those companies that you were like, holy smoke, there's some pretty awesome, there's some freaking amazing people there. And then Nick and the team all started up ThoughtCon up in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember going there, I went there, and with Jesse and I went there and talked, and it was amazing. But watching people put those on, I'm like, nope, not happening.
Right.
I'll help, I'll turn up, but fucking.
Well, It's interesting, and this will be another episode, but breaking into our industry, right? How much time are we spending talking to HR, making them fact check those ridiculous job descriptions?
Oh God, yeah. Don't even.
I'm just, look, you've got 8 years in experience in a product that's been out for 6 months. I need you to have a CISSP, 2 master's degrees, a doctorate of, research ethics.
An OSCE.
For a tier 1 support role on the 3rd shift.
Paying $40,000 a year.
Yeah. Get real. So I think, and part of that, guys, I think is solely and squarely on our shoulders.
Yep.
For not doing the right translation work. Hiring manager comes, says, hey, tech guy, what do you need? You've got this laundry list of what you're burdened and backbroken by. So you're like, well, he needs to know Splunk, and he's got to go know this, and he needs this and that, and these techniques. And this unique toolkit that we have, that only we have. Right? And then because I think that chips away at the negative side of ego. I think that promotes that negative, because now I'm not good enough. I can't measure up. I can't even get my foot in the door. Here I studied my ass off. I bled, sweat, and cried my way to here. And now I can't even get in the door because your literal job description is set up to it's set up for 2 people on the planet who are potentially qualified, both who are probably working at Google for $500,000 a year. Right. You're unicorn hunting. Will you find the unicorn? Sure. When you poach them from the company they're already at. So
right.
What about the young ones? What about the career change? I know a bunch of 50-year-olds just a while back, truck drivers, 40 to 50-year-old crowd, said, I can't retire because I'm not in a position to, and my career I can't drive truck much longer, either medical reasons or fear of AI taking the job and wanting to be proactive, whatever it is. And they, wanted to get into the security field, and they almost immediately ran into barriers. Training was cost prohibitive. Jobs had crazy descriptions that, so I looked into taking a class, and it doesn't even get me the job. That's my last $500.
There's a I had a really good talk with them. I think we did a podcast on it. I got to remember. And it was all about apprenticeships in our industry and bringing back apprenticeships in the industry. Absolutely fantastic conversation. Again, looking for a lot of folks coming out of the military who have either maybe come out of IT tech jobs in the military or maybe even not, but they have that mentality and then going, okay, how do we bring them in? How do we actually get our industry to go, look, it's an apprenticeship? Because that's what I love about it as well is for me, it's like when I look for people, I'm like, I want somebody who's got that fire, the drive, the passion, the intrigue, the no bullshit, the no dickhead. I can teach you all the tech. I can send you to the classes. I can lay you down with books. I can let you loose on the internet, whatever method of learning you want to do. I got you covered. I just want the human that cares. Everything else, not a problem. Almost everything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What was it? Warren Buffett. Hire for intelligence, integrity, and drive. You can teach the rest.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a recipe that's always worked for us. We've grown successfully, not imploded. We started during a recession. I mean, we started in 2008 when we had the housing crash.
Oh yeah, that was nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, and so but we've always hired for intangibles. The kinds of people that you'd want to work with. Yeah,
that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm eating buffalo bits.
What's a buffalo bit? Is that meat?
It's not testicles or anything. It's what do they call them? The Hanover, the pretzels, the buffalo pretzel bits. Oh shit. I'm throwing buffalo pretzel bits everywhere.
Well, at least that wasn't whiskey.
Right?
No, I'm actually drinking. Okay, so I don't know what I call this. Maybe I'm actually drinking a really dark beer, a monstrous beer, which is it's aged. It's whatever it is. It's aged in barrels. Let's put it that way. But I'm drinking out of my Glencairn glass just because I don't want to drink that much, but I do, and I might go get a refill in a minute because I've emptied it.
So what tips do we have for dealing with shitty ego people?
Well, first,
Jesus, concrete Wellington boots. Send them to Minnesota.
No. We don't want them. Send them to Canada. Send them to Quebec, the French Canadians. Ooh. They know how to deal with them.
Yeah, they do. For me, it's don't engage them in their negativity, right? So don't mirror. The number one thing, because you'll want to mirror. That's like human nature. You're gonna want to. Oh, you've been an ass to me. Let me go ahead right now and return the favor. So not mirroring their behavior. Have some sympathy because they're probably pretty hurt on the inside. Realize where that ego is coming from and realize that they're probably just a fragile, broken human on the inside, and your compassion.
You're nicer than I am. God, you are so much nicer than I am.
That's because I used to want to, whip them all until they...
Oh, come here.
I had to get over it because you know what, Chris? At the end of the day, my anger inside wasn't good for my health, right? And when I started to love other people, I started to exude more care and concern.
No, I get it. I
my quality of life. So
wholeheartedly understand.
A little selfish, but no, I think for me that's the ticket. And then on the flip side of that coin is if you don't feel like you have self-worth, you need to check that. You need to possibly talk to a professional about that, right? Because everybody walking around has value.
Yeah.
They have something to contribute. Now, whether you show that value or you actively contribute, this is where we get the different people in society, right? But the potential's there. So if you don't, especially if you're younger in this business or you're older in this business and suffering from imposter syndrome, just remember, just as much and just as little as all the rest of us. And if you're younger in our industry trying to get in and come up and you're running into all these walls, know that we're trying to break that stuff down, but know that your voice matters. Write that HR leader a letter and say, fact check that job description. Don't just let the door get closed in your face and walk away. Have enough self-confidence to go back and challenge it a second round. you're probably not going to get through to the job, but if it happens enough times, it's going to start to make change.
So this is where, Nickerson and I sat down over a year or two ago, and we did a bunch of posts on LinkedIn about breaking into this industry, about how do you get in, how do you do it. Again, back to your point, it's like, okay, if I'm new to the industry, there's no way I'm going to have 5 years of experience. But you know what? If I can show that I tinkered at home, if I can show that I turn up at a B-sides, that I did a capture the flag, that I've got some code, that I've got a GitHub account that's got something on, whatever the focus is going to be, if I can show I have that, and you almost have to be your own advocate, which is where I love it when people hit me up online. They're like, hey, can you help me? I'm like, I can't mentor you. I just don't have enough freaking hours in the day. But what I can do is I can be here to answer questions. I can, and what I'm doing a lot of the times is I'm actually, first off, I'm like, look, read the blog posts that Chris and I and a couple of others put together. Just read them because it helps you. It talks about go out there, build your LinkedIn profile, build a Twitter profile, get something on peer list, but get there and start to contribute. Because then when I, as the employer, either hear from you on LinkedIn as a connection or you come as a resume, you might not have all the experience, but I go out and I look at you on a CTF, or I look and I see your name appear, and I'm like, holy shit, bring them in. Let's have a conversation. Because you've not sat there and waited with both hands going, I want a job.
Right.
You've actually gone out there and gone, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. I'm going to, even if you don't have much money, go down to ARC or go down to like the resale stores, spend $20 on a computer, rip the whole thing to pieces and do a bunch of blog posts on exactly what a freaking processor is, what it does, and why most of us have forgotten about it, and how I can still compromise the damn thing. And you can do that with a $20 computer that you picked up at the freaking resale store. Mm-hmm. You don't have to spend thousands to do this. And
come help me hack my Harley.
And that's it.
I mean, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You can come help me.
Yeah.
To me, and one of my advice for dealing with egotists is just ignore them.
Yeah.
They're like dogs. Like if you show an attention, and I know that they're people and they're hurting, but I don't have time to help all of them with their hurting. I know that, and I still respect that, but if you ignore them, they go away, just like dogs, right?
I've blocked a bunch. I got to be honest. There's a number of people on like Twitter and LinkedIn I just blocked. Because I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to have to look at it, deal with it, and go, ugh, not again. There's a couple of people in our industry who have definitely been more vocal against the opposite sex, shall we say? And I've heard through various grapevines. And when you hear that shit, that's it. I will validate. I'll trust, but I'll also validate, and then that's it. I'm fucking done. I will try to tackle some of them.
You just got into a whole different area. Now that kind of crap, I have zero tolerance. I was more speaking about, like if they're an egomaniacal maniac, those egotists. No, my advice for that is exactly what Evan said. I ignore, I block, but yeah,
and find people.
You almost got me fired up there, Chris, because that one, that's a whoo. I ain't got no time.
Oh yeah, but who was it? There was one of our community was like made friends with somebody on Twitter. Next picture, fucking dick pic. I'm like, you'd be fucking kidding me. In this day and age, in our industry, I'm like, what fucking planet are you on? And LinkedIn. I mean, you've got some amazing like JLo, like Anne-Marie Zettelmoyer. I mean, like there's A-list, Pancakes, and all of these other fucking amazing. And yet you've got arseholes in our industry who are like, I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it at this point in time. I really don't.
Well, and their fuel is followers, right? I mean, the more people that follow, the more Twitter followers and all their shit that they have, the more power they get from it. So fucking ignore it, call it out. No, don't call it out. Maybe to your close friends, but don't call it out publicly, because that's just going to get you in the same shit show that they're already in. But find positive people, find good people, find people that'll hold you accountable. Make them your friends. I mean, I'm friends with as many people as I can handle, like you guys. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day,
Right.
but I give a shit. It
Yeah.
hurts. It hurts to see somebody else get taken advantage of. And that's actually the purpose for everything that I do. I hate seeing people get taken advantage of, fucking pisses me off, man. I mean, 100%. So, and that same thing happens with egotists. Usually we've been around this industry long enough to know that somebody who's touting their ego, we know that it's full of shit, right? I mean, these accolades and things that you talk about, and that, while you're putting down other people, it's fine to tout your shit.
Yeah.
That's good, right? We all want to tout our shit, feel good about it. But when you tout your shit and you're putting down other people's shit,
Right.
that's when it's bad. And, we've been around long enough to know to see those things. And I think for people that are just getting into this industry that feel beat up, if you have been beat up by really a bully, ignore it. Find people like us, find people like Dave Kennedy, find people that are uplifting, that are good people. The one thing about Dave Kennedy that I realized, I wasn't much like you, Chris. I was a behind the scenes kind of guy. I don't like being out front. I want to be in my office doing some shit. That's where I'm happy. But when I did get on social media, which wasn't that long ago, one of the first people who followed me was David Kennedy.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit, Dave Kennedy's following me? Damn. I mean, it made me feel good just that he followed me.
Yeah. But again, he's another one of those, he's a human.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about him. I mean, there's so much, it's like Chris Payne as well. I mean, this guy runs several conferences and the amazing stuff there's so many of them in our community that are fantastic. And I think that's a big part of it is, to your point, it's like, you just have to ignore them and go find the right ones. And there's enough people out there. Again, if you looked on the social medias, you looked on the LinkedIns, the Twitters, the 303s, the 971s, all the various different 2600s that are around the place, go to the B-sides. You're always going to find some amazing people out there that do this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. People that are humble. Humble's good. Yeah.
It's weird though, because when since I came not out of the closet, but since I came out of
let's celebrate that.
I did tell my mother, I've been very, very upfront with my mother. I've said, look, if I get into a relationship and it fails again, I'm freaking done. I'm going to go chase after Jesse and that's it. I'm done. And my mother's like, oh, Christopher. I'm like, it is what it is. So Jesse has warned me off with a shotgun numerous times. I will just point that one out. Anyway, where was I going with this?
I don't know. It was somewhere good.
I know what it was. On stage. We're talking about on stage.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I have a lot of fun on stage. I'm sick and twisted. I actually enjoy going on stage and just hanging out with people and talking to audiences and just weaving. I love the storytelling. I love taking an idea and a concept as anything as crazy as like quantum mechanics all the way through to how to hack a human and ships and shit and stuff like that. And I love building a story to get as many people to come along and inspire and get them going, oh shit, yeah, I want to go mess with that. I actually enjoy it. I have a ton of fun. I put myself under a shit ton load of stress because of like building decks and presentations and always wanting to do something new, yada, yada, yada. But I have this like weird, sick and twisted. I enjoy it. And I'm actually having more fun doing that, I think, than a lot of other areas these days. It's kind of fun.
Well, I miss the stage.
Right?
Yeah.
And not to stroke your ego, Chris, but one of the things, and I was talking to Ryan about this, that was one of the things that I found very attractive, not, in a good way, about you, was the fact that when we reached out to each other, it was real, right? There was no, there was no ego. We had a meeting where we were talking about K-12 and, things that we could do to try to help in K-12. And it was, I just sat there and listened. I mean, I was in the background listening to the conversations. And for somebody who has the following that you have, with the experience that you have, it would be so easy for you to have an overinflated ego.
Yeah.
But you don't, and I appreciate it about you.
I do my best. I'm both cognizant, and it also scares the hell out of me as well. I got to be honest. I actually put a LinkedIn post out last night. I was sitting down last night, and I had a couple of amazing. Oh, I know what it was. We did the Wiser talk about the hacking, the nation states hacking into companies, and it was just amazing. I'd asked 7 people to come on the talk, and all 7 said yes. And I'm like, oh shit, there's only space for like 5 or 6. I expected people to say no. And I'm like, oh crap. So now we've got another couple of these done. And I got off this talk and I just sat there and I'm like, holy shit, I don't know how I've done it, but I'm so freaking lucky. They're like JJ Snow, she's this most freaking amazing person who literally runs most of AFRL. And you've got like Tony Cole, you just got Gary, and there's just some amazing people. I'm like, how the hell do I know these people? And so I got scared. And, back to the imposter syndrome. I got scared, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, look, I have to say thank you. And I dropped a post out like last night, and I'm like, I don't know how to say it. You guys are here along with the journey with me, and I just have to say thank you. And that, I think, is what keeps me. I think keeps me grounded. And so, not just Jesse threatening to pop me one with a freaking a shot charge or something.
Right.
But it's also I don't know why, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
No, it does.
Why or how or where I've got to where I've got to, apart from all the stupid mistakes I've made.
Right. Yeah. Tony Cole is the one who put us together, originally
Yeah.
made the introduction between the two of us. And yeah, he's amazing. And he endorsed my book, which was like,
Nice.
damn, that's cool.
He's like the civilized version of me. I loved it when I was working.
The civilized version.
He is, but I mean, seriously, he is. He's there's another guy, Larry. Gosh, why can't I remember Larry's surname? I need to be in front of the computer. Larry, I can't remember his name. I have to look it up. Amazing guy. Another one of those amazing guys.
Larry Ellison. He doesn't have an ego.
Oh my God. Yeah, the big tall guy. The big tall guy. Oh my God.
No, the Oracle at Larry Ellison, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just want to sit back and you just want to listen. I'm like, okay, yeah, not that one. Yeah.
Right.
No, he's there's Tony's amazing because you look at what he's done and his experience and his background. The guy sits on the freaking advisory board for NASA, for crying out loud, and yet he's the most quiet, civilized, normal, humble. And I'm like, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Right. Yeah, he's cool. He's cool for sure. All right. Another perfect example. Somebody else who's just ridiculous in not even really just in our industry, but again, you take that whole concept of our industry needs to step off of its ego a lot more effectively. You look at the whole movement for the DevSecOps movement in how those 3 teams that, let's face it, pretty much run the entire internet of everything, have got to try to work more effectively together. And you look at somebody like Mark Miller, who has done, I mean, the books he's put out. I was very fortunate. I got dragged into one of the books and we had a ton of fun. But the books and just everything that he does to bring the industry together, to put things on for other people, to showcase other people. I mean, it's just freaking amazing. I look at those people, I'm like, those are the people I need to follow. Those are the people I take my cues from. Well, exactly. And those are the people that we point or should be pointing the new people into the industry, or the people who maybe aren't as seasoned and confident and have the war, wounds. Point them to those people and say, follow them, be like them.
Yeah.
Emulate them, be humble and learn, just the good things about our industry, be that,
Yeah, there are some amazing folks out there. I mean, I remember when I first started One More Labs, so we're 2009, and my very first client, and it was actually, he followed me because I was running it. I got voted out of my own company. Yay!
That's a whole nother story.
Oh, yeah, that's another one of those, don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I got voted out of my own island, literally. And when that happened, this individual followed me and he's like, look, I'm running this. We don't have much money, but we want some help. And he was my first client and he knew it. And I knew it. And Al Gardner, he's here local in town. Just an amazing, another one. It was working for Denver Rescue Mission at the time. So it's obviously nonprofit. So, I mean, I'm like, okay, we'll do it. We did it for like the minimal cost, but he knew I needed to put food on the table. So we literally did it at cost. We did everything. And I just kept working with him. And now he's moved on, and we share whiskey. He loves his cigars. Man, he is a cigar man. But I'll go out there with whiskey and we'll just sit down. And this is 2009, 10, 11 years later. And we've maintained that friendship through work and everything else. And it's just another one of those crazy, humble, but amazing individuals in this industry who never really gets recognition, but just is the backbone, for a better way of putting it.
Well, and the cool thing is what makes them so special too is they don't want the recognition. That's not why they do it.
Right.
They do it because they genuinely love people, want to help people. They get their sense of self-worth based on what other people that they maybe influenced, what they do.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
It's it's interesting. I've had to temper my hatred of vulture capitalists for another one of those individuals who's like selfless in that way. There's I'm fortunate there's a group out primarily on the West Coast called the Tinkerers. And it's all like CISOs and leaders and all the other folks who we've got basically a safe haven. It's all Chatham House rules, and it's just really a safe haven to have conversations. And it's run by a VC guy. It's run by a guy out of Forge Point. Will Lynn is an amazing guy, but he's not doing it to like harvest information or any of that shit. He's doing it because he realized that the community needed a safe place to come together. And we didn't do it ourselves. We hadn't put any of this kind of stuff together ourselves. We didn't have a safe space for people to come together as far as that goes. So he's like, I'll do it. And I mean, he's running Slack channels. We do conferences a couple of times a year. We just get everybody together and just talk.
Nice.
Again, it's people like that that change your opinions of almost a certain entire group of other people in that kind of similar vein. And you're like, okay, maybe I do need to take another look at these folks.
Right.
Some of them.
Ryan, what's going on over there?
Hey, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to go. I'm out. I'll be back.
No. I can sit and listen to that guy. Well, where'd he go?
No, I was just sitting here absorbing, man, hanging out, taking it all in.
What'd you say? Was it your ego? Did you scare him off?
Yeah, I scared him off. He went to go get another drink.
Damn it. I thought we were being humble too, right? I felt like I was being humble.
Is
it the beard? No, he's got a beard.
No,
I don't know what it is.
No, see, he's back.
Okay, good. Oh, Black Ops.
Boston Black Ops. Brooklyn, God help us. Brooklyn Black Ops.
Same part of the world.
Yeah, pretty much. Sound that coast, it'll do. I won't get too much lynching. Let's just say I can't get it in my neck of the woods whenever I go to the East Coast. It's been a long 24 hours, 48 hours, so I'm opening this. I'm not going to drink it all, I hasten to point out, but I'm going to have a couple of glasses.
There you go.
Well, I think you deserve it, man. Because I was watching you on Twitter. I follow what you're up to, and when I saw what your day was going to be, I was like, oh fuck, I don't want to be you.
It was a busy day. I was hoping to get a nap in, and I failed miserably. I just hung out with the dogs. That was probably my nap on its own, was just hanging out with the dogs. Yeah,
I was interviewed today by a dude about, this is the weirdest shit, right? I've been a security guy. I know security. I do security. That's kind of my thing. If somehow you find yourself running a company, you're like, how the fuck did that happen? And then now there are people that reach out to you that like want to interview about leadership, business leadership for classes, that they're doing master's degree. And so a guy, well, sort of, but because I don't know what the fuck I'm like, so he's like, tell me about stuff. And I'm like, dude, I don't know, man, just be yourself,
Yeah.
Try to love people, try to care about them. And I think that'll go a long way. Have
you ever read the book? I typically don't read many like management books or any of that kind of stuff. But there's one out there that was called Good to Great.
Yeah, that's a good book.
It's a fantastic book. It's one of the few books I've actually started and finished the whole ruddy thing in like business world. Because again, same thing. You sound like the same way. It's almost intuition, which is sometimes good and sometimes a little scary. But it's like, I'm just going to do what feels right when you're running the business. And you have mentors, you've got people, hopefully you can ask, and you just go with it. But this was one book I picked up and I'm like, yeah, I actually understand this and I like the concepts in it.
Yeah. And surround yourself with people like Ryan. Surround yourself with people like John Harmon, like Renee Rudder, like the whole management team. My job's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I get to sit in my garage, look like this, ride Harleys, talk bullshit at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. What's not to like?
Yeah, but it's all the blood, sweat, and tears it took to get to that point, and all the mistakes and all the pitfalls, and simply getting back up the same day or the following morning and knowing you're going to do it again.
But that's the whole point of the game. That's where all the fun lives. I mean, seriously, what the hell? That's where the fun lives. If that's not the experience, I don't know about you guys, but if my day, like COVID was a great example of this. I started doing that Groundhog Day stuff and the sanity was leaving me by the basketful by the minute. I just could not, this Groundhog Day shit, because there just wasn't enough diversity, enough challenge, enough problem. Like,
yep.
I believe it or not, I actually missed the experience of needing to urgently go to the bathroom and then having a coworker stop me midway to the toilet with a real quick question.
While you're starting to dribble, like,
is there water in it? Right? Like, I started to miss it. Like, wait a second.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or being in line at lunch and I've got to be back in time for a meeting and I'm like, am I going to make it? I've got 3 minutes. There's so much thrill in the journey.
Yeah.
The pitfalls, in the mistakes. I actually was talking with Harmon today about mistakes, and we both share this idea that if they're not being made, you're probably not pushing yourself. You're probably not exceeding yourself, right? If everything's in the safe, if everything's always calm and comfortable, right?
Well, mistakes aren't.
They're evidence of trying.
Well, and they're not optional, they're mandatory.
Right.
Make mistakes and know that you've got people around you that will support you. And I think that's the same thing on how you deal with ego people. You will get knocked down, but it's in you. You can pick yourself up, right?
Yeah.
I picked myself up in this area of life. It's no better or no different than any other struggle that you're fighting, right? It just happens to be over here. Yours is over there. But you have it in you. You can pick yourself up, surround yourself by people that will love you, that will encourage you. And that's how you get past all this ego bullshit.
Here's a question for you. And I found myself over the last couple of years wanting like a safe zone. And I don't know if this sounds a little crazy, but movies. So I'm really bad with movies. I'm not good. I can't watch a movie the whole way through. I almost have to get to the end of it and then go back and watch it because I want to know what happens. I want safe movies because it's like my escape zone. I'm happy for having chaos in so much other part of my world, but I need, and I think for me, my like safe zone is almost the movie in a book. And I don't know, I want that escapism. I want to leave this realm, but I want to do it in a nice way. And it feels like it's only been like the last, probably 3, 4, 5 years I've felt that way, much more so than I have done before. Am I just going nuts, or you guys too?
No, man. Having a safe place, an escape. Yeah, I have it for sure.
Oh, 100%. You're looking at it.
Yeah, Legos.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Evan.
Evan.
I finally got a Harley.
Oh, baby. We got to put a motor.
Oh, no way. Oh, that is fantastic.
Do you think it's possible to put a real motor in there?
We could put the Lego motor in there. But the engine itself actually has pistons, so it has inner working parts. So as you drive it along, you can actually take the valve covers off and see the pistons moving up and down.
Oh no shit! Is it kinetics or Lego? Is it Lego or kinetics Lego?
Oh, it's both. So it's
no
it's
way.
a blend. Yeah, in order to get the shape right, and in order for Harley to license it, it had to meet the standard. They had to do a mix because if you use just Lego pieces, it's too unstable and collapses. So the innards are mix. And then you put the Lego shell. That's how the Batmobile's the same way. The Batmobile's majorly Technics.
Yeah.
And that thing's massive, dude.
I had Gary Hayslip. He bought himself the Star Destroyer. And what he was saying, same thing. He was like, I can't do with this madness. Apparently he, his significant other, and I think maybe the kids joined him, and they literally built, I can't remember how many, it's like 8, 10, some crazy amount of thousands of pieces. They apparently built this in like a number of days. And I'm like, you're kidding me. My daughter and I have got the Taj Mahal going upstairs. We've had it for a year and a half. And we were like, a third of the way through it.
Right.
Yeah, but that's one of my outlets, right? Is I sit down and I build. The other one is, blacksmithing. Like I tend to pick my
Oh, no way. Are you serious?
Yeah. So it's because when I'm blacksmithing, I cannot think about anything except the task at hand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will seriously injure myself, and my wife will become very angry with me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's, and the same thing with the Legos, because if I screw up, and I do occasionally get about halfway into the build and go, shit, I forgot. Why do I have this piece? Why do I have this piece? Where does this?
Oh no!
I find out that I didn't quite look at it right and got to go back 40 steps. But it requires such a focus for me, kind of like with your movie thing, right? And you're talking about predictability. So again, with the Legos with the blacksmith, I have a level of predictability to how the outcome is going to be.
Right.
And I think there's something very soothing in that. Evan loves to ride his Harley, right? And aside from when a deer occasionally gets in the way, it's got a pretty predictable outcome.
That fucking hurt.
Yeah.
that hurt.
Not good. Not good.
No.
Not good.
Well, and for me, it's to roam. I need to roam. You know what I mean? I travel a lot. I ride a lot. I go places. Last weekend, it was camping in Wisconsin. This weekend, it'll be going down to a small town called Lanesboro. Yeah, I can't. I mean, yeah, that's what I do. And I set boundaries. We were talking about this yesterday, Ryan. You called me out, and I think you're right. You're like, man, I think you got ADHD. And I'm like, fuck, probably. I mean,
well, it's just, I know because I have, like,
right.
Like, so it's easy for me to self-identify
right.
the traits in others. So I'm like, yep, that's a thing.
Yeah. But, it's things like that, help me. So, but I set boundaries. You have to, for somebody like me, if I'm dangerous, the worst thing for me to be is bored. I will get in trouble for sure. So I have a wife who knows that. I have friends who know that. So I set boundaries. I don't work on Saturdays. Period. I'm no longer in the incident response game. So thank God. So Saturdays I can make that, that boundary. Beyond that,
I got in the car. I like the cars. My daughter will not let me have a motorbike yet. We're in the middle of negotiating potentially for like an off-road bike, like a GS, like a BMW GS or a Tiger or something like that, or a Kajiva.
You would look badass on a Harley.
I'm not allowed. She and I have to respect her views. I'm a little bit lead-footed, and I've raced, I've rally driven, I've done all sorts of other stupid shit, and I like my speed. And that doesn't mix too well in this country. I used to ride bikes in the UK. My mother only found out like literally 4 or 5 years ago about 7 or 8 years ago that I used to ride bikes. An ex told her, and that was an interesting discussion. But I take the car out, same kind of thing. I'll go out in the car and just, I'll write them on, we'll go out for a drive and just head out into the hills, either with or without the dogs for half a day or something, and just go hang out in the hills.
See, I like the driving because that's another one of those singular focus.
Yes.
Well, unless you're texting.
Well,
check an email.
Like Chris, I may have a leadened right foot.
Yes.
So I learned a long time ago, the only way to drive fast, safe, is to pay attention.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Pay
Absolutely.
100% attention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I think this is another great topic, though, talking about burnout, talking about how do you fight that shit? I mean, I know we all put in an assload of hours.
Yeah.
How are we still around in damn near 30 years or more?
Well, part of it is too, and I know this is true for both of you, there's keyboard hours and then there's off keyboard hours. Because I don't have a brain that easily quiets itself, and I suspect neither do you two.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And so there's a lot of time spent plotting, thinking, formulating, unpacking, regurgitating, distilling, all that mental cycle before I arrive at this is what goes in the deck, or this is what goes in the email.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, off keyboard time doesn't seem to take the same toll as on keyboard time. And I don't know if that's the screens. I don't know if that's the setting. I don't know what it is, but I always feel more fatigued when I've done on keyboard work versus mental Olympics.
Well, and so you're an extrovert.
Big time.
I'm an introvert. It's the opposite for me. If I'm on the keyboard, I could work 20, 30 hours straight and be like, what the fuck day is it? Holy shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You put me, when I give a talk, I got to go to take a nap, man. I'm exhausted. The people, that off keyboard time kills me, but it's cool how, you have those separate, different kinds of people, I appreciate the fact that you're an extrovert and that I'm an introvert, because you can be the left brain, I can be the right brain, and together we can conquer the world.
There's balance that comes from it, right? Like I live with a super introvert, and maybe that's even another topic for another day, right? Is introversion versus extroversion in our industry, and where do you see it manifest more?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's Chris's topic next. It's Chris's topic next week.
It is actually. Honestly, I already know what I'm picking.
Nice.
I know what I'm picking. We all know what the darker side of this world is. We all know we can add at least an extra 0 to what we get paid to step onto that side of the world.
Yeah, at least one.
Oh, yeah. Why haven't we? That's what I want to talk about next week.
That's a great topic.
Yeah, that's really what I want.
I've used that so many times too with people. I've been like, if I was a bad guy, if I didn't have whatever I have that's keeping me from going bad, I'd be a billionaire and I would never get caught.
Yeah.
I'd be your president probably.
whatever country it is we decided to take over.
Doesn't matter. Several of them at once.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It's basically playing Risk in real world. Couldn't say it's the first time I've done that. Let's put it that way.
I'd vote for you, man.
There's no democracy. Oh, there is no democracy.
Yeah, I was about to say. I didn't say what kind of president I.
Right.
Yeah, no. This is absolute dictatorship. Now,
let me be in your cabinet. Would you let me be in your cabinet? Let me run something.
You don't need a cabinet when you got a dictatorship. It all just flows straight to you.
No. You gotta have your posse, Chris. Come on now. You gotta have your dictator.
Yeah.
Worth his salt without a posse.
Let me be posse. I'm a
gold AK and a fedora.
Yes.
Right?
I'm a badass posse guy.
Just with
there
a
we go.
beard, a
I
fedora.
got a feeling next week's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. All right. Well, we're at an hour 20.
Something like that. Wow, everybody's stuck the whole time. Well, thanks, guys.
Oh, bless. That's totally awesome. I love,
This is one of my favorite times of the week. Being able to catch up with you guys. I respect you so much. Yeah. Stay healthy. Chris, get some rest, man. You can't run like this all the time, brother.
I'll work on it. I gotta go deal with. I got another early morning tomorrow morning with some nuclear people, and then I get to your point. I'm doing this. Actually, I'm doing the same thing.
Good.
Mostly doing the same thing. I'm taking most of Saturday off.
Good. Good, brother.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'll keep you both in check because, you know, you do have to occasionally do other things.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Working on it.
There you go. All right. Love you guys.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, I love you guys too.
Right.
Thank you.
Have a
Talk
good
to you
Take care,
soon.
guys.
Bye.